It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday with Professor Greg Cosell from NFL Films University in the house. Got to get Greg's thoughts not only on the Super Bowl, having watched the coaching tape, but also some of these coaching moves around the NFL. We're always presented by DraftKings. This is actually our last show of the week because we are in off-season mode. So if you're missing us tomorrow on Friday, listen to the College Draft or Even Money or Fantasy Feast, all of which were excellent this week. And if you haven't given them a try, I'd appreciate it if you did, or if you have, maybe give them a second chance. I think you'll really enjoy the other content that we are putting out. Kind of makes this a Finish Strong Thursday and a Winners Thursday. So I'll announce the winners a little bit later in the show because I don't like to mess around on a Greg day. I like to get right to them. It's big show time.
The Big Show.
All right, Greg. I think you know what my first question is going to be. Check out Greg on social media, by the way, at Greg Cosell always. So you know anytime he's providing content anywhere. He does do other shows. I wish he didn't, but I don't pay him enough to only do my show. So, so I understand. Look, I'm the last person in the world that can talk about not doing other shows. But no, Greg does a bunch of radio stations and Colin Cowherd, and he's everywhere. He does an awesome job. All right, Greg, blank canvas. Overall thoughts from the Super Bowl. What jumped out to you? What interested you the most? What do you got?
I mean, that's a very wide open question, but I'll start this way. I was really fascinated by what the Chiefs did starting the second half. They were down 24-14, and, I think most would have thought, hey, this now needs to be a Patrick Mahomes game. This needs to be, hey, Mahomes is going to drop back. They're going to throw it all over the yard. They've got the best quarterback in football, and it's time for Patrick Mahomes. That's not the way it played out at all. In fact, Andy Reid, as you know, he really came out. He came out with what we've talked about all year, multiple tight end personnel sets. They ran the football. Their run game was as multiple as it's been all season long in terms of the concepts that they deployed. Mahomes was efficient, but not spectacular. Obviously made that 26-yard run on the final drive, which was a spectacular play. But it was not really a Patrick Mahomes game in the way we think of Patrick Mahomes and the way we expect it to be Patrick Mahomes. And I thought that was really fascinating. And in fact, even the passing game was really highly schemed, much more than, hey, Patrick, you go out and be Patrick. So given the score and the fact that they were behind by more than a score, I really found that interesting.
What did they do, if anything, differently in the second half than they did in the first half? So in the first half, 4 possessions, 7 points for the Chiefs offensively. Second half, 4 possessions, could have had 4 touchdowns if that's what they wanted.
Right. I don't know. Keep in mind, they only ran 20 plays in the first half, and 6 of them came on that opening drive where they moved the ball fairly easily, ending with the touchdown to Kelsey. So I don't know if they necessarily, it's always hard to know because we don't know what was said at halftime, and it's a longer halftime. So we don't know if they did anything that was different than what they really wanted to do, Ross. It's just that they only ran 20 plays. They hardly had the football. The Eagles ran 44 offensive plays in the first half. And that was the other point I was going to make when you gave me a clean slate, is this was clearly a Jalen Hurts game. The coaching staff clearly decided that Jalen Hurts would be the player that everything would revolve around. The Eagles had 44 plays in the first half, which, as you know, is an incredibly high number for one half of football. Hurts had 22 throws and 10 designed runs, not scrambles, 10 designed runs. So 32 of their 44 plays in the first half were Jalen Hurts. So the Eagles basically said, this is not a run game. I mean, obviously there's a Hurts run game, but this is not going to be a Miles Sanders run game. This is not going to be a Kenny Gainwell run game. This is Jalen Hurts. He is going to be the player that we live and die with. And obviously Hurts played at a really, really high level. But to me, that was pretty remarkable that 32 of the 44 plays in the first half were Jalen Hurts plays.
Just listening to you talk, Greg, and obviously the fumble return for a touchdown was a huge play. We all recognize that. But it really is remarkable that the Chiefs came back, because you would have thought, especially on defense, that they would really have worn down, and that the second half, the Eagles could have taken advantage of that. 44 snaps in the first half. I want to get to the Eagles defense in the second half. What did you see from them in terms of straight rush versus blitz, in terms of coverage? Because it did feel like the Chiefs receivers were pretty open. It didn't feel like there were a ton of really contested catches.
No, and this was a kind of a clinic by the Chiefs in the use of motion. They used formation, motion, play design. That's how they got receivers open. They ran the ball. Okay, that's really critical here. They came out and they ran the ball, and they did it often out of multiple tight end sets. So the Eagles at times played with their base 5-2 front, and their base 5-2 front did not do a very good job stopping the run. So with the run game element and the use of personnel in motion, the Eagles' pass rush really was not a factor in the game. Keep in mind, the Eagles lived this entire season off sacks and turnovers. They would get ahead in the second half, and they would rush the quarterback, and teams would have to be one-dimensional. The Chiefs clearly made a decision, even though they were down by more than one score, that we had plenty of time. We're not going to be one-dimensional. We're not going to make this a Patrick Mahomes drop back every snap game. We're not going to put our offensive tackles, Wiley and Brown, in a position where they have to pass protect one-on-one versus Reddick and Sweat, because that's a mismatch that favors the Eagles. So they chose not to do that. And then when they did throw, they made it a point to help Wiley in particular on Reddick. They did not want that one-on-one matchup to be a deciding factor in the game. So it was the way the Chiefs came out in the second half that helped to minimize and negate how the Eagles had done their work all season long.
Yeah, I think probably the most disappointing thing, and living around there, that Jonathan Gannon's somewhat of a polarizing figure in Philadelphia for whatever reason. I guess my frustration would be, Greg, they didn't really do a very good job of slowing down either the pass game or the run game. In other words, like, okay, if you're going to allow them to run the ball on you a little bit, you'd think the pass defense would be better, or vice versa. Stop the run and try to make the Chiefs one-dimensional. They really didn't do a very good job of that. They really didn't stop either in the second half.
No, and it's not because they weren't trying. Like I said, they played in their base 5-2 front. Their run fits were not really good. The interior of their D-line got moved in the run game. They played Jordan Davis a number. He did not play one snap in the first half, but he played, I believe, 9 or 10 snaps in the second half, and he got moved. He was not a factor in the run game. And as I said, when you combine that with the run fits, they struggled to stop the run. And with a lot of the quick game throws and the formations and the motions, the Eagles defense could never really gain any traction. And, the Chiefs kind of made it difficult. But, when that happens, then individual players have to be able to win individual matchups. And that didn't happen for the Eagles.
What did you see coverage-wise from them, Greg, the Eagles in the second half?
I mean, they mix it like they always do. They mix man and zone. Look, they're a coverage-based team. They're not a high-percentage blitz team. And I don't believe in this game. When they're in their 5-man defensive front and they rush 5, I don't view that as a blitz, Ross. I don't know how you feel about it, but if it's a 5-man defensive front and all 5 rush, I don't view that as a blitz. But the Eagles did not rush a linebacker or a defensive back in this game. I'm almost certain of that. So they stayed with what had been their calling card all year. From having played, it's very difficult for a coach in the middle of a game. Here you've done something all year long and been the best in the league at it. When do you change? Or do you just say, you know what, we're eventually going to do what we've done all year at a really high level? Obviously, because they lost the game, I'm sure fans are saying, oh, Gannon should have adjusted, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? They led the league in sacks. They had the third highest sack total in the history of the game since they started recording sacks. This is the way they played all year and were really, really good at it. And they had the lead at halftime, which has been the case most of the season. So, it's always easy now after the fact, but I think the Chiefs' offensive approach really minimized what the Eagles do well.
When you watch the coaching tape, Greg, how much of a factor was footing in the game? How many guys did you see falling? Obviously we can only see what the cameras show us. How much of an issue was it looking back on the coaching tape?
I thought for both teams it was a factor. I mean, I noticed it quite a bit, and normally those are the kinds of things I don't really spend a lot of time on and notice, but it was noticeable. And of course, the field was the same for both teams. But, I think because the Eagles wanted to generate pass rush in the second half, I think it became a factor there because they really couldn't generate pass rush. You saw guys slipping, so yeah, I think it was a factor for both teams. It's hard to quantify that, Ross, as you know, but it was clear.
You mentioned the amount of touches that Hurts had in the first half, Greg.
Yeah.
I might even be more impressed by some of the throws he made in the second half. A couple of Goddard in tight windows, which were great catches by Goddard. The one to Quez Watkins against the blitz. Honestly, Greg, it's about as good as I've seen him play, I think. I think he might have played his best or one of his best games in the Super Bowl.
You could argue that throw to Watkins may have been his best throw of the game, because that was zero. And I think that was the first time they went zero, I believe. That was 2nd and 9 on their first third quarter possession, Ross. Bolton was the spy on Hurts, which was something they did as a clear game plan tactic. Bolton was a spy 5 or 6 snaps in this game. And he saw an opening, so Bolton rushed through the open A gap. Hurts made an unbelievable throw under pressure to Watkins versus Thornhill on the post, but Watkins could not make the catch. It was a big, big-time throw. He made a number of big-time throws in this game. Hurts played at a high level, and I think you really saw, the impact on a defense that the Hurts run game has. And just even in the pass game, because Bolton was a spy, teams have to defend that. And I think that's really an important factor for what Hurts brings to the table. And when he makes throws like he did in this game, then he's really, really difficult to defend.
Yeah, I thought, there's always going to be a question of can he do it in a big spot against the Mahomes type? Well, he just did.
They scored 35 points, and they didn't have a defensive touchdown. So, Hurts played at a high level in this game.
Greg, I want to transition. And by the way, it should be noted, Greg's not going anywhere. And starting next week, we'll dive into the draft series with Greg. Maybe we'll even talk about some of the players that Greg is looking forward to seeing at the Combine. So we'll dive into that next week for sure. But I want to get into some of these coaching changes. Let's start with Shane Steichen going to the Indianapolis Colts. For Colts fans that listen to the show or watch youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, what should they know about Steichen? What do you know, or what have you seen from Steichen over the years?
Well, I think, he has a very interesting background because obviously he's been with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, and he was with the Chargers prior to that with Phillip Rivers, 2 totally different kinds of quarterbacks and 2 somewhat different, obviously, systems because of the nature of the quarterback. So, I don't think he's beholden for people who think, oh, they're looking for a Jalen Hurts type quarterback. They may be, but the point is Shane Steichen has experience with others as well. And he may have been I'm trying to think. Was he with Andrew Luck? That I don't know. But the point is, he has experience with multiple kinds of quarterbacks and multiple systems. So obviously they need a quarterback. My guess is they're going to draft one. We'll see how all that plays out. We don't know how the draft will play out. They don't pick first unless they want to make a trade. But I think that the fact that he has multiple systems in his background is a real positive for the Colts.
Right. And I would say, I guess they say midway through the 2021 season, he took over play calling from Sirianni. They went very run heavy, had a lot of success the second half of 21. And then, like you, Greg, I watch every snap the Eagles play. Maybe with the exception of like the Saints game when Minshew at quarterback, boy, it felt like he was usually ahead of the defense.
Yeah.
And, they got a really talented team. They got a good team. We've talked about the different options they have in the RPO, but I was impressed, especially early in games.
Yeah.
They would come out and just go right down the field, Greg.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's no question that, that the
he's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the Hurts factor allows you to do so much offensively that puts defenders in conflicts and makes them tough to defend, depending on who their quarter. Obviously, let's say it's Will Levis, and none of us have any idea right now, but obviously Will Levis can't do what Hurts does. If it's CJ Stroud, he can't do what Hurts does. So, the fact that he does have experience in multiple systems will be very helpful depending on who their quarterback is.
It's interesting you say that about Levis because he's not as fast as Hurts, but Levis can run.
Oh, no. But I mean, I don't think that you, again, and I watched Levis last summer. I have not seen him yet from his 2022 film, but I don't think he's Jalen Hurts in terms of how you structure an offense.
Interesting. What about Jonathan Gannon in Arizona, Greg? Just curious your thoughts having watched him the last couple of years in Philadelphia.
Well, yeah, I know Philly fans probably disagree, but Jonathan Gannon is a highly respected young football mind in this league. I don't know him personally, so all we have is what he did in Philly. As far as just running a defense, and as I said, I'm sure Philly fans probably don't think a whole lot of him these days, but he's a very respected guy. Their defense was bad in Arizona. I don't know if they hired him for that reason, or I don't know if they hired him because they think he's an up and coming young coach who's going to really put together a really good overall team. So I don't have any great thoughts on him beyond the fact that I know he's highly respected, just the way Brandon Staley is. They happen to be really close friends. They're two young guys that are really respected in the coaching industry.
What do you remember about Todd Monken when he was in the NFL, Greg? Last time he was in the NFL, it was with the Jameis Winston Bucks, 17 and 18. They were top 10 in the league on offense both those years. He went to college, obviously got a heck of a lot out of Stetson Bennett and the Georgia Bulldogs winning the national championship the last couple of years. Any thoughts for Ravens fans on what they can expect from Monken there in Baltimore?
Well, I think the number one thing is what the offense is going to look like. They had a unique offense under Greg Roman, which was clearly geared to what they believed Lamar Jackson's skill set was. It'll be interesting to see if Todd Monken, who does have, again, a pretty multiple background, Jameis Winston is totally different than Lamar Jackson. At Georgia, they ran kind of pro stuff, because Georgia ran the football. They would line up and run the football. They had spread elements, as every college team does, because you have to, because of where the hash marks are. So you're silly not to take advantage of that. But they were not one of those air raid, just spread it out, toss it all over the yard offenses. So the question becomes, what do they think of Lamar Jackson? Does the offense stay relatively the same? Or at this point, do they say with Lamar Jackson, okay, we're going to run what would be considered a little more of a traditional, conventional offense with the passing game? And we don't know the answer to that. And I don't know the answer to that, Ross, but I'll be very curious to see that.
Yeah, I bet Lamar Jackson is too. But
Yeah,
he's really interested to see what they're thinking in Baltimore moving forward. Check him out on social media at Greg Cosell. We do a draft series every year. It's really, really popular. We'll start that in some way, shape, or form next week. Greg, thank you so much for everything all season. Really appreciate it.
Oh, Ross, love being with you. Thanks, my man.
There he is at Greg Cosell. Listen, you know what Greg Cosell is? He's awesome. You know what West Shore Home is? Awesome. I've told you guys this a couple times now. westshorehome.com/Ross. westshorehome.com/Ross. My daughters love their new shower. We all love the other new shower and tub that we got. I can't believe they can do stuff like that in a day. So much better than having somebody in your house for 3 or 4 days. I talked with the people that own the company, or like the marketing guy, and he said a couple of you guys have gotten orders. You've gotten new, you're going to get a new shower or bath remodeling project. It's amazing. You should. I highly recommend it. Even just a free consultation. Why would you not, if you've ever thought about it, why would you not let the guy come for free, measure everything, tell you what your options are, tell you what it would cost, then it's up to you. If you want to ever actually do anything about it, maybe not now, maybe sometime later. I mean, it's up to you. Go to westshorehome.com/Ross to schedule a free consultation and get 20% off a shower or bath remodeling project. 20% is a lot. westshorehome.com/Ross.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, we'll start with the Saints, who restructure safety Marcus May's contract to free up a little bit of cap space for him.
So we dive right into it, Jack. I mean, we are already into off-season mode with some guys signing and coaching movement, and the annual Saints path to getting under the salary cap by trying to free up cap space. They're going to have to cut several dudes. They're way over the cap. It's not ideal for them to be trying to remain competitive.
Tuck's Takes.
Some coordinator news. The Buccaneers hire Seattle Seahawks quarterback coach Dave Canales as their new offensive coordinator.
You know what's funny, Jack? This doesn't happen to me very often. I never heard of this guy, and I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. I'm going to assume you're right.
I did research.
Did you?
For once, I was not having another Luan mishap there. So I did some research, and that's what I heard.
You know, you just said it wrong again, right?
That was the point.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
Luan.
By the way, have you seen my tweet at Ross Tucker NFL about being disgusted by Patrick Mahomes chugging a beer during the parade and saying, there are children that are look up to him that are watching? Have you seen that?
I did. I actually had to stop a few of my friends from yelling at you thinking you were serious.
Dude, it is an all-timer. I mean, the replies, it is just amazing. Like, there is no way you've ever listened to any of my shows or ever heard me on the radio or ever followed me on social media where I do Show Me Your Beer like twice a weekend, okay? There's no way you know anything about me and think I'm serious. It's so funny how upset people get and how many think I'm serious. It's just incredible. I mean, let me just tell you guys, if you're not following me at Ross Tucker NFL on Twitter, you're just missing out because it is hilarious. Speaking, by the way, of beer, might as well. Lots of things are better together, Jack. Basketball, hockey, food, skiing, beer. If you want to take things to the next level, drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. I don't know. Todd Bowles, was he with Geno Smith at all with the Jets?
I think very briefly.
We got to look that up. After you ask me one of these other questions, look that up. Because I almost feel like Todd Bowles was with Geno Smith briefly with the Jets and was like, holy crap, if this guy got Geno Smith to play that well, he's got to be our coordinator. He's got to be the guy we hire. So maybe that's why the Bucs hired Dave Canales as their OC, because of what he got out of Geno Smith this year, which is to say a lot.
So they did overlap in 2015. There was, I think they're both there from 2015, 2016.
Yep. And so Bowles knows what Geno was like then. Saw what he did this year. That's my offensive coordinator.
Tux Takes.
Parks Frazier will be the passing game coordinator for the Carolina Panthers.
He was the play caller for the Colts after Frank Reich left, was fired. And obviously he and Frank must have a good relationship. And just him calling those plays last year for the Colts just makes him so much more marketable for colleges or an NFL job like this. That's why it was so smart of him to accept and say yes, because now he's got experience calling plays in the NFL.
Tux Takes.
The Jacksonville Jaguars apply for reinstatement of their new recently acquired wide receiver, Calvin Ridley.
They're going to be frisky, with Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk. They bring back Evan Ingram, ETN. I mean, I think Ridley will be allowed to come back. Still can't believe he bet on some games, like on his own phone, on his own app. What is going through your head? Cost him a lot of money.
Tux Takes.
The Baltimore Ravens bring back a few guys, re-signing defensive end Brett Urban and cornerback Darryl Worley.
Usually this means these guys are just signing for the 1 year minimum. I did this in New England once. It's like, hey, you want to get your spot, get your opportunity in camp, try to lock in your role on the team before they draft somebody that, that could take that spot.
Tux Takes.
The Chicago Bears finalized their purchase of land at Arlington Park.
Certainly seems like this is happening. Kind of a bummer for me. Something special about Soldier Field on the lake in the city. That would be a real bummer for the city of Chicago if this happens. And it certainly sounds like it's going to. And there's just a lot of financial opportunity if you own your own building and you can have other events there and stuff. So totally get it. We also have some two things before I forget. Number one, we got some winners I'm about to give out. Number two, Monday's show is an all-timer. I'm interviewing one of the 200 million people that did not watch the Super Bowl. It's going to be incredible. You got to listen or watch or whatever. Not sure, by the way, if that's going to be late Monday night or Tuesday morning, because I'm taking a long weekend with the girls not having school on Monday to go skiing this weekend. Good time for you to follow me, especially on Instagram and Facebook at Ross Tucker NFL for some family pics. I usually don't do that on Twitter very much. Let's get some winners, Jack.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
People like Ron Poliquin, Poliquin, rated and reviewed the show on Spotify. It was that easy. Thank you, Ron. How about the sponsor confirmation email winner? This will probably be tweeted out one of the next 3 nights. Fabrizio in Italy emailed me a picture of him drinking a Labatt Blue Light in Italy watching the Super Bowl at like 1 a.m. I mean, what a life I'm living here, Jack. I'm in central Pennsylvania talking about football in my garage by myself, and people are sending me pictures of them drinking a Labatt Blue Light in Italy watching the Super Bowl. YouTube shout out Lori Willett. Lori, email me, ross@rosstucker.com. Let me know who you want the video for. By the way, anybody that has been a winner recently, I sent out all the press passes that you earned, did the videos, everything yesterday. So I'm all caught up on the show winners. So let's get some more. Go ahead. Start to give us the 5-star Spotify rating and take advantage of any of the sponsors. Shout outs are in order. MyFrontPageStory.com. always a good gift. BackOfficeScheduler.com, Evergreen Economics, Go-Bengals.com, SteakhouseSports.com, HumanHeadNYC.com, Sporticulture, and the delicious Pizza Boy Brewing. Check out one of the other shows tomorrow or Saturday or whenever. We will have college draft bright and early on Monday morning. Ross Tucker Football Podcast will be a little bit later, maybe even Tuesday morning. Have a terrific, terrific weekend. Enjoy the time, hopefully with family and friends. I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.